Welcome to CTO Think, a podcast about leadership, product development, and tech decisions between two recovering chief technology officers. Here are your hosts, Don Vandemark and Randy Burgess.
Hey, Randy, how are you doing today?
Man, it's been a rough 2 weeks. I caught the flu 2 weeks ago. It hit like full blast about a week prior in the middle, and I have just been. It's been hard to breathe. That's all. Like it went after my lungs more than anything. So
Sure.
I'm on the recovery. Every day is getting better, but a lot of coughing, a lot of struggling to speak. Had to cancel 2 speaking engagements because there's no way I could have breathed and projected for longer than 5 to 10 minutes. I tried to teach my wife and my father-in-law code and barely got through 10. So It's been an unfortunate kind of scheduling, but I'm on the mend. And in the meantime, I've been spending my time learning React testing, test-driven development, and some Node stuff. So threw some learning in there, even though I guess I should have been sleeping. How about you?
I'm sure you slept when you needed to. So
yeah.
Overall good. Megan and I had a nice chat last week over on this old app while you were recovering. So that was good. Flew into Austin today here for a conference, the Restaurant Facility Maintenance Association conference. So this is for construction specialties. We have a booth, so we're an exhibitor. Going to be here through Wednesday. Today was typical day you fly in for a conference activity. So I flew in, went to the convention center, registered, and then came back to the hotel to rest up just a bit. And then I needed, drinks, food. We're giving out little candy hearts at the booth because everybody loves candy. And since it's Valentine's Day week, I figured candy hearts were the best. So
I'm sure you're the only people that thought of that.
I bet not a lot did. We're going to revisit this in a couple weeks, and we'll see how right my guess was.
All right.
But I have a feeling we're going to be one of only a few. But no, I was scrambling around trying to get back so we could record this. So the way we did it is my brother-in-law is here with a different company. He he's the main salesperson for a different company, and he was at a different hotel, but he's got the car. So I went over there, grabbed the car, drove to the various places I needed to go, dropped the car off. And as it's about 15 minutes before you and I were supposed to get on when I finally broke away from there, and I'm like, man, I got to get back. It's a very light drizzle. I don't really want to be out here. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I've seen the scooters laying all over the sidewalks. I'll just sign up for one of those and just use that, and that'll save me 2 minutes or whatever. But hey, it's an experience, right? You got to try it once to know what it's like.
Which one did you use?
So in the hotel on the way downstairs, I downloaded the Bird app because Bird is all I could think of. I couldn't think of the name of the other one. Lime. So I downloaded the Bird app. I step outside. There are 2 Lime scooters sitting there. So I download the Lime app. And of course, it's not a long time, but it takes, 60 seconds to download and install. So, already I've lost a minute or two. And so then I knew I was going to have to enter my information, my email address, my credit card. But again, I'm like, that's a minute and a half. It won't be that long. And I get the experience of doing it. So I finish all that. And went through the sign-up process. You normally have your terms of service.
Yeah.
All right. This is where it all came crashing down, figuratively. So in the terms of service, you have to be 18. There are 6 boxes. I don't remember them all, but you have to be 18. It says you cannot ride on the sidewalk. You must ride on the road. Well,
Yeah.
the road I was next to is a 4-lane road, with cars going 45, 50 miles an hour. Like, I don't know about that. You have to, it's illegal to ride without a helmet. I'm like, well, who the heck just carries a helmet around just for the heck of it? So I checked all the boxes, but I was like, well, now I could do it. But that the police are probably out there looking for exactly this, exactly riding on sidewalks, exactly riding without a helmet, that sort of thing. So I'm like, I won't chance it. So all that build up and all that hype and it all came crashing down. And I just walked back.
I guess the question is, did you see anyone else using them?
Let me think. Maybe earlier this afternoon, I saw one person using it without a helmet on the sidewalk.
I don't think many people, I've used them. I don't think many people use helmets. I don't think many people listen to their mothers anymore.
Right. And that if it had said it's advisable to wear a helmet, I'd be like, yeah, you're right. It is. I don't have one. So I'm just going to go with that. But it said it's illegal to ride without a helmet. I'm like, all right, I could do this, save myself a couple minutes. But if I get pulled over and ticketed, that's probably at least a $25 ticket. Knowing cities, probably 50.
I don't know that the police in these cities are really doing that, to be honest.
Unless they don't like the service, which very well could be the case, right? I wasn't going to risk it. So all that hype and nothing. So anyway, what I wanted to talk about today, experience we had today, this week with Aspire EDU. So I don't know how prevalent this was in the tech news. I don't remember seeing it on Twitter anywhere except
I read
for
about
the
it.
very specific ones. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. But Mandrill went down. This was back on, I want to say Tuesday. I could be wrong on the exact date. But Mandrill went down. And so we use Mandrill to handle some of our email processing, mostly incoming, of attendance reports from schools. So there's an app that Canvas has called Roll Call, and it sends an email. I think it's an Excel file. It might be a CSV. If you sign up for it, it sends a CSV to you, and it's up to you to do something with it. So we built an integration to do something with it. But Mandrill went down. So all of a sudden, I think about a third of our schools have signed up for these attendance reports to be brought into their complete dashboard. All of a sudden, that's not working. And it's causing us... It's not that it caused the whole thing to go down. It caused little things to look a little weird.
Yeah.
So the first thing the developers did was disabled it. They said, okay, we'll just disable it in the code and it'll go away. And then all of a sudden, a whole section of the dashboard went away. And then we're like, oh, we can't do that. So we tweaked the code a little to where we could deal with no reports coming in. So this is the first time we've had a third-party service go down on us for more than half a day.
Yeah.
And we're sitting there in the afternoon, getting past 5 o'clock, and it's still not up. And there's still, I think, I'm trying to remember the exact timeline. I think by the afternoon they said, yeah, we have to flush our Postgres database, and there's no good way to tell what the progress is on that. So we don't know how long we'll be down.
And that's, so going back to, did people know about it? I can tell you that you told me about it first, but then in my weekly newsletters, there were a couple articles about the actual Postgres issue they ran into and why they couldn't just flip a switch and fix it. So
Right.
it was a significant issue that they ran into at a company of their scale. It was one of those things that was preventable, but because it caught them unaware, they just kind of got stuck in a bad spot.
Right. Right. And I don't know if you want to dive just a little bit deeper into the technical part of that, which we can do in a minute. To go further with what we did, by about mid-afternoon when we saw the announcement of what the problem was, we're like, alternatives. We have to get off Mandrill. Now, this was an easy decision for us because it was already in our backlog to get off Mandrill. And the reason being is we use Python Django, and the Mandrill Python library is no longer being maintained by MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
So that means we could not upgrade Python to 3.7. We were back a point release, which is fine, but it was eventually going to be a problem. When we got to 2-point releases away, then it was going to be even a bigger problem. So we knew this day was coming. It just so happened that that day was the day, and we had to do it in a scramble. So we looked at a number of services. I think you suggested SendGrid. We looked at Postmark.
Yeah, I like that.
And
that's a good one.
We looked at Amazon SES as well. So the discussion we were having on Slack, the lead developer was saying, well, we can go with Amazon SES with all its normal Amazon complexities, but it's less expensive, or we can go with Postmark or SendGrid, which are, roughly in the same area. They've got different ways of doing templated emails. SendGrid uses handlebars and Postmark uses Mustachio for their templating language. Our current plan on Mandrill had 50,000 sends, and that we had never exceeded that. So we used that as our benchmark. So we went ahead, made the switch over to Postmark. We can dive into why Postmark versus SendGrid another day. I think at the end of the day, it had to do with the templating language, I think.
But at a more abstract discussion point, it's about don't trust your providers. Like we're very fortunate in our line of work where the downtime of our providers is usually very slim. I mean,
right.
This Mandrill outage was a big deal because they've been going strong for a decade and they haven't had those kind of issues. As a rule, for when I have a production app that has a high volume and a strong dependency of the service, I typically, either myself or someone on the team will abstract the service so that the only thing our code really does is says send email, send notification. And then we've abstracted the actual sending so that it can go one of two ways. So an app that I did a while back, we had 2 email service providers that we could go to. One was Mandrill, the other was maybe SendGrid, I can't remember. And we used Mandrill, but we had the other service set up. It was only going to cost us money if we used it. And we had the code and the configuration set up so that if the only thing that we had to do was change an environment variable and say, use SendGrid. And so the implementation of sending the email was strictly looking for, if you're using Mandrill, follow this config. If you're using SendGrid, use this config. And so if at any point the primary Mandrill had gone down, we would just swap it, and within minutes we would be back online in theory to use the other provider. And we did that as a kind of, we were over optimizing in a sense. But of course, now the scenario you ran into, it's like, oh, that wouldn't have been over optimizing. But that's
No, not in that case.
I've done that with other, as a rule of protecting our app from downtime. I've done it where I had we were using Heroku for the hosting platform. And because we needed uptime for this app for a weekend, it was during the Super Bowl or something. So we really couldn't afford it to go down, because the whole idea was the capture of marketing data for that window. So we actually had an engine yard install set up right there. And basically the only thing we would need to toggle is, where is the DNS pointing for this thing? Which wouldn't have been ideal. It would have still taken an hour probably to migrate all that. But the idea was we had 2 installations of this app ready to go. If one went down, we'd flip it to the other. So that's, in my mind, how you prevent downtime, is when you use external providers for vital services, choose more than one, and then have your code set up with the ability to use either one at any given time. That's how I've approached it.
Yes, and in a perfect world, that's the right way to do it. Although in a perfect world, nothing goes down.
Yeah.
But that takes time. Because when you're setting it up, you have to write it in an abstract fashion. And then B, you have to write the more than one hooks into each of those services. And when you're going down the road and you're just trying to get something working, it doesn't always lead to being able to do that. And you end up in this situation. I'm not saying only going with a single provider is the right way to do it. I'm saying it's a choice. It's the choice we made. It bit us a little.
But not. But like, in hindsight, was your choice to use only one provider, did it really hurt you that much?
No.
Yeah.
Outside of the little bit of inconvenience the customers had on a portion of their dashboard. And that's kind of why that's why we didn't optimize it for, abstract it away and make it so that we could switch at any time, is it wasn't mission critical. The most mission critical third-party service we use is Heroku / Amazon. And I would even say it's really Amazon. Because if Heroku goes down, which it's done, the CLI has been messed up or whatever, that just means we can't push new things.
Yeah.
But if there's production code out there, it's not on Heroku. It's out there on Amazon. So when Heroku CLI goes down, that doesn't affect production. It just affects our ability to make changes.
So maybe I'm jumping ahead on what you want to talk about, but do you feel the need to do a post-mortem for your user base on this outage?
To arrive at what result would be my question.
Because they all were stranded without that dashboard piece, and they were distraught.
So you mean an email to the user base saying when you said postmortem, I took that as a investigation and all that.
Oh,
You mean an email to the user base saying, "Here's what happened. Here's how
yeah.
we dealt with it. Here's what it looks like in the future." We do that very well. I think we do that very well. I actually don't write a lot of those. The CEO is the main customer contact, so she writes a lot of those. For this one, she said, write me a few sentences on what happened and what we're doing about it. This was in the middle of the outage. So my statement was essentially, one of our third party providers is unavailable at the moment. We're monitoring what they're doing, and if they are unable to resolve their issue, we will go to a different service.
And so she said to your user base, from the CTO, Don chose the wrong service. He screwed up. Sorry for the problem.
She usually does not put it that way. No. And usually when I say that, and I will, whenever I have to write these, because usually when they're more technical, she has me put some words together. And I've even, if it looks like it's our fault, I've even been the one to send the email just so it comes from me saying, hey, this was a technical team problem. This is what we're doing. This is how we're resolving it. So most of the time it's been third parties. Yeah. And what I hate to say a third party provider is no longer providing service or is down at the moment, because that feels like shifting the blame, but it's also the absolute truth. And I don't think it's on us to take all the blame for something like that. How we react to it, yes, is on us. What we do to make it more resilient in the future is on us. I never use, unless I think once I used the name of the service, and I think it was because it was Amazon. But rarely do I name the service, because that feels to me like throwing them under the bus.
Yeah.
And really, we all have issues that arise, so I don't feel like throwing people under the bus. And plus, if I name them, that feels even more like finger pointing. Whereas if I just say, hey, a third party service of ours, then I don't feel like I'm finger pointing. I feel like I'm explaining.
Yeah. And I mean, I ran into a problem with a service once where I had to explain to a couple of customers why we were down. And it's like, people don't really necessarily care, like, hey, it was a third party provider, but I agree with you. Pointing fingers and kind of pushing that off is, unless there was a question of who the heck are you using, and you have to say, nobody got fired for choosing IBM kind of thing, then I don't see, it doesn't benefit you to, people are using your service because they're trusting you to make the good choices of those third parties. So it doesn't necessarily get you off the pressure off you if you just say, well, it's Amazon's fault, because it's like, well, yeah, you have other alternatives in Amazon too. You could choose Google, you could choose Azure. So it doesn't, I agree with you. It doesn't benefit you to kind of point fingers unless people are specifically asking due to maybe continuous downtime or something.
Yeah, and that's usually if it's and that may have been the time I named the service, it was an extended downtime. So on our status page, I actually linked the status updates of the service. Again, I think it was Amazon. And at the end of the day, to be quite frank, we have a way to move off Amazon if we have to. But most everyone's Canvas instance runs on Amazon.
Yeah.
So if Amazon is down, they're not getting into Canvas. If they're not getting into Canvas, they can't log into our application. Therefore, they'll never know we're down.
Yeah.
We'll tell them because there's no need not to at that point. But at that point, it's one of those things where we've seen those a couple times where Amazon goes down and half the services on the internet disappear because they're all running on it.
Yeah.
So we have ways of getting off. It would take us a day. But we could get running again if we had to on something else, and I think that's acceptable. But that was really, I mean, in the end, we moved on. One little gotcha we found. The initial reason we used Mandrill, it was the least expensive one, and we kind of liked MailChimp's templating system. So there were two things, right? It was least expensive, and the templating system was really nice, really easy for the CEO to use and create new emails to go out. Because we use it for both inbound and outbound.
Yeah, I mean, Mandrill and MailChimp used to be the fun company to use for email. I mean, like I think I set up a ton of clients on them, and they had a humorous approach to customer service and documentation. Clients felt comfortable with it. I feel like it's changed a lot in the last few years, probably VC driven or something. I don't know, but
yeah,
they've lost a lot of business because of the way that they treated. Like they onboarded everyone for free and then just kicked everyone out all of a sudden. And I'm not arguing that probably wasn't smart for them because of cost, but it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and it changed the kind of the way people felt about them, I think. So
yeah.
So let's switch gears real quick and talk about what you would do if the database provider went away, just went down. Like you couldn't, like, what do you do? Like, I can't think of many other Heroku services that are ultra critical, other than compared to Heroku Postgres. So
and Heroku Postgres sits on Amazon.
Yeah, but what if all of a sudden those databases went away? What's your recourse?
We have backups, and we have backups off of the backup service.
Mm-hmm.
So we have nightly backups that we can pull, and we've got regular backups that we can pull from a different location in case the whole thing goes down.
Yeah.
That is probably literally the hardest part of any switch, is moving the data.
Have you practiced restoring?
We have not restored a full database. We've restored a partial. So that's not a complete answer. But we have gone through the process of restoring it. The reason we haven't gone through full is due to the sheer size. Again, we've talked about what we're doing with our database splitting. When we get further down that road to where we've got a lot of little databases, all of a sudden it's real easy to do that.
Yeah.
And we can do a complete test. But that is absolutely something we should do, and I'm comfortable enough with the results of our partials that I'm comfortable with that as an answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about database backups that I always hear people talk about, and I've heard disaster stories where they try to restore the database and they can't.
Right.
And that's the worst. So, like, I can say without any hesitation that on every app I've ever worked, I've gone through a process of pull a backup, restore it, get it working on local, make sure that it's like there's no corruption in it. And then in our README, we have instructions for anyone that would be on the team how would you recover a backup? What are the commands you would use? How do you check it and all that good stuff? So
Sure.
that's what's really important, I think, is, if your database provider service goes down and you are on vacation, you're in Austin, Texas, and you flipped your scooter over a car and you're at the ER because you weren't wearing a helmet, of course. If who else can follow the instructions to restore that database other than you? And that's what's really important for backups and stuff is, one,
Sure.
are there instructions for someone that doesn't know how to do it? Two, do people know how to get to those instructions? Three, has that process actually been done to make sure it works? Four, is there another service you have access to get that database running? Because in theory, if Heroku Postgres is down, then Amazon Postgres is down, or EC2 or whatever they're hosting that stuff. So you're going to need to get on board somewhere else to host it. So that means like DigitalOcean or.
But there are plenty of services out there that have.
But
now,
do you?
I say that. I say there are plenty of services out there for that. But if Amazon were to go down and people start scrambling, those things are going to disappear fast.
Yeah. And that's why people do reserved instance, like bigger firms will actually reserve accounts on something that they don't use, but they have it there ready to go, and they can boost it up. I mean, I'm pretty sure Engine Yard is based on Amazon, but I think you can choose Rackspace instead. And so I believe you can choose the platform. I haven't looked at Engine Yard.
I mean, at the end of the day, if Amazon went down and people were scrambling, you could probably get to Google and find enough. We could probably find enough space on Google, if nothing else. But Google isn't of itself its own. It's not like, spinning up a Linux instance, I don't think, without Kubernetes, because I think you've got to be on Kubernetes to get theirs working.
Yeah.
But that's, and to be completely transparent, if we had to make a database move like that, that would probably make our whole database splitting thing actually easier. Because all of a sudden we can say, you know what, let's take an extra 12, 18 hours and get these databases split and be done with it. Because that's really what we're waiting on, is times to take the database down so that we can move it around. If the database is already down, well, we throw up the database somewhere and we just split it real quick and then we put it back up real quick. Nothing's real quick on a database, as Mandrill found out. But yeah, no, that was good when it happened. Like I said, like you said, you and I talked about it, and I said, "Now we need to talk about this on this week's episode, because it's a good topic. It's very important. It even ties into all the security discussions we've been having, and people are going, why does it tie into security discussions? Because when you're filling out these security questionnaires, disaster recovery, business recovery are all part of those questionnaires. So the questions you're asking are very, very topical for that. And like I said, I'm comfortable with the answers I give, because I'm comfortable that in a scenario where we've got to do all that, we can make the change we need to in order to get everything set up.
So what did you, I guess this is kind of tacking on to the end, but maybe we should talk about the beginning. When it went down, what did you do to find out what was going on?
Well, that was interesting. There wasn't a lot out there. We were watching Mandrill's Twitter feed, and that's what really started to hone us in on what they were
like. They
doing.
don't have, do they have a status page, like status Mandrill?
I I don't remember, to be honest. I assume they do, but it wasn't getting updated with the answer as far as what was going on. It was just we are down sort of thing. So we actually saw the update on what the issue was on Twitter sooner than we did on their status page.
Like, isn't it weird that the world's biggest cesspool of messages is also our unofficial status checker system? I mean, I do the same thing. I had a client I work with reach out to me and say, like, hey, I just got a warning from my monitoring system. Why do you think my site's down? And I go and look at his Squarespace, and everyone's going crazy on Twitter about it. And like, there's another one called Status Gator, I think, that tracks stuff. I think the idea is that they check the status of these services. But I honestly don't see an official status for Mandrill.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I'm not sure we ever found one, and we just looked on Twitter's page. We were following their Twitter feed and just looking in general to see what was going on.
Status.mandrillapp.com redirects to Twitter.
There you go.
That's nuts.
That's the answer.
That's so weird, man.
That's and I don't want to pile on. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't want to whatever other cliche you can think of.
Yeah,
that doesn't surprise me. Just from, like, again, we were already planning on moving off for other reasons. Them saying they weren't going to support any future versions of Python, that meant we were moving at some point. It was just a matter of taking the time to do it. Now, that either speaks to them as a company or Python as a popular, I won't say viable, popular app to use or language to use to build SaaS on. It's probably more the latter than the former. Because there's not a ton. There are Python, Django, SaaSes out there, but a lot of them are written in something else.
Yeah, I would say Rails and Node are kind of taking the forefront these days. I mean, Python is used for the data stuff like crazy now, but
oh yeah, it's real big there. It's even really pretty much killed off R. I've used both for data analysis. I much prefer R. But yeah, Python's become the language du jour for data analysis.
I mean, I'm still always in the debate of Rails for the long term versus Node, but I just know it so well, and it's so easy to get stuff going.
Yeah, and there, I'd be surprised if you really had to move off Rails onto Node. I have a feeling, just the way these things work, there's something else coming that'll be more of a thing than Node will be. But I mean, not. And this is me. I much prefer Node to anything else.
React Server. It'll be React Server will be the next big thing. And it'll be complete horse crap as a server, but because it says React, we'll start using it.
Yeah, except that how much. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how much the backlash against Facebook, of whatever backlash there is going to be held against React long term. I think if any, it'll be minor.
Worst case, it's Vue wins out, and that's not really bad at all. I mean,
yeah, that's not bad at all. I mean, again, we've talked about it before. That leads you more to an Angular-y world.
I don't think so.
Angular was very popular.
When we talk about hooks, Vue's already got their hooks game going. Like, they just blatantly will copy it and go like, yeah, well, we'll add that feature. I mean, I was showing Megan React and Vue as like, hey, this is what a front end framework is. And truly the Vue
Right.
is like the easiest one to explain. So
I
it's
agree.
kind of like, yeah, I mean, we're getting off topic here, but yeah, we have a lot of great tools at our behest. It's just a matter of which one should you choose. In your case, Django still does the job, so there's never a reason to change. But
Yeah, and it'd be extremely difficult to make a
yeah,
switch, right? Um, Once you've built a SaaS on a framework, rebuilding it on a different framework, I just that sounds
yeah,
expensive. And when you're a company that's all, just a small company that's not venture backed, that does the job with a small team, you don't look at things like switching
yeah. You
complete
don't need a
frameworks.
greenfield or
You
anything.
make what you have work unless you have to.
Well, eventually you have to go to microservices because that's the coolness. So then you can write whatever code you want for all those services. Until you go and say, you know what, this is a pain in the butt to maintain. Let's go back to a monolith, and then you can get in that
Yeah,
debate.
exactly. But then that's just a nice seesaw, right? You just seesaw
Yeah.
back and forth.
It gives somebody some work. So, uh,
Yeah, exactly.
all right. Well, my voice is about to give out, I think. So,
Yeah, I'm sure.
um,
I'm sure.
anyway, I I feel like you can get away with using the scooters without a helmet, especially in Austin, where everything like they like to keep things weird and free. Uh,
Are you paying my ticket?
the ticket? Oh,
If I get ticketed, are you paying my
no, you're an
ticket?
adult. You can cover your own your responsible actions. But I mean, I believe in Chicago you're supposed to, and Atlanta, where I've also seen them, and I don't know how they get away with it, but I don't know. It's worth. They are the scooters. Here's the thing: the scooters are fun. Using them at night, I wouldn't. I'd be very careful to do. The thing
Right.
about the problem with the scooters, my first experience using them was in Santa Monica on a beach path. That was awesome because it was geared for pedestrians and bikers, and it's very smooth.
Sure.
But within the time I used it in Chicago, the roads are not built for scooters, and hitting a
Right.
pothole or even a small bump, you have no idea what that's like on a scooter because the wheels are so small and you're going really much
Right.
faster than you can kind of respond to. I hit some kind of metal spike sticking up on the road and I almost flipped. So I would definitely be more careful using those scooters based on my own experience, but and definitely not when it's dark. But
Well, speaking of near death experiences, I had one of those tonight where I'm like, yeah, I just see how I could have died just now. So I was walking across. I was crossing the street, not at a crosswalk, of course,
yeah,
and I was waiting on a car to pass, but I anticipated it. So I anticipated the car passing me. So as it's approaching, I take a step towards the edge of the road and didn't see that there was a little raised area right there before you got to the edge of the road.
yeah,
So my toe caught it just so lightly that it didn't cause me to lose balance or anything. But I'm like, holy cow! If I had caught that anymore, I was going over into the path of that car, and there's nothing that car could have done to stop.
yeah.
I'm like, I just saw how I could have died just now. Doesn't happen often, but that was one way. So,
But here's the thing: if you wreck, the last person you'll see is Matthew McConaughey standing over your body, saying like "Welcome to Austin." That's because he's there. He's everywhere there. I think.
he is. He's everywhere. Everywhere. UT
All right,
grad.
all right, all right. I told you to
All
wear
right.
a helmet. All right, I'm totally losing it now, but
That's all right. I think that's the best way to wrap this up. So.
All right. Well, I will continue to take medicine and get my lungs cleared out so that I can come back to speaking with the projection and power I need. But we will have a good trip in Austin. Enjoy
Thanks.
the conference, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good. All right.
Thanks for listening to the CTO Think podcast. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at ctothink.com. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. Patreon contributions help us to produce episode transcripts, which allow people that are deaf or hard of hearing to access the show. If you have feedback, ideas, or want to be a guest, please email us at hello@ctothink.com. Show music is Dumpster Dive by Mark Wallach, licensed by premiumbeat.com. Voiceover work by meganvoices.com. You'll hear from us next week.